There is a very interesting thing that happens when you step out of teenagehood and you kind of like begin to be confronted with the world. I guess you start reckoning with the things that you can't necessarily change, like who you are. You start accepting yourself and loving yourself more, which is a great thing. But with that comes the knowledge that there are some things that will require a lot of work for you to change or sort of like step away from them. And I think that for me, the things I wanted to change the most were the parts of myself I kind of related to her, which is maybe not a really nice thing to say, but I guess like I knew intimately how those personality traits could affect someone in a negative way, and I recognized them in myself. And so it wasn't necessarily one instance where it was like, oh fuck, like I'm on the highway to becoming my mom. No, it was more like, oh, I've always hated this, but now I find myself drawn to doing similar things. Or now I recognize that as much as I was being so critical about this part of herself, I see it in myself too. And it was like reoccurring moments. And when you sort of arrive to the end of your early 20s, or kind of come to like a reckoning of who you are, then you kind of piece those together and come to the conclusion that maybe you aren't so different, and that the same things that happened in her life that made her this way might happen in yours. And I think it's the process of feeling like I am not a teenager anymore and I'm running out of time to make like impactful changes, and like my decisions have like they feel more pivotal to the person that I'm going to become further down the line. And so it's more sort of that feeling. I don't know if there was a specific event that made me not look up to her. I think it's kind of something that happens with every kid, with like you're growing older and you have your parents on a pedestal in the beginning because they're your parents, and like they're the ultimate authority, or like they get to kind of set up the rules for how you live your life. And then you grow older and you start to question those rules, and you question the people who impose them on you, and so your parent. And I think maybe realizing that she had like a lot of weaknesses, like a lot of my needs weren't met because of things she would be doing, made me kind of like resent her for it. And I guess that kind of took her down from the pedestal. But it also kind of humanized her a little bit, because like after she comes down and like she's a human as well, like it's kind of hard because like she's supposed to be your role model or someone you look up to, and then you realize that person's human too. But I guess maybe it makes the relationship a bit stronger, like deeper in a sense, because at least you're kind of interacting on the same kind of base level, because it's like adult talking to another adult instead of just like parent-child relationship. Maybe that happened a little bit too fast to my liking, or maybe anyone's, but yeah, I guess it had its benefits in the long run. Even though we share similarities, I don't think we're necessarily the same person. Like we both have our very distinct personalities. And I think that comes from the fact that even though we relate on a bunch of like aspects, we did have very different childhoods and upbringings, and that doesn't impact the way you behave. So as much as I am a bit scared of sharing her flaws and kind of fulfilling the prophecy of becoming your parent, which I guess is kind of every child's fear. Yeah, we are very much our own persons. So. If there's one takeaway I don't really want from this whole experiment, is that I absolve myself from responsibility or blame or just accountability in general, because it's just my parents' fault. I'm not responsible for any of my actions. I'm just a product of my environment. No, that's not what I'm saying. I think there's value in acknowledging your background and where you came from and how that may or may not have affected you. And I think that's part of growing up, and that's kind of the season I'm in, as in I'm in the midst of all this reckoning, and it's scary and it's necessary and just this whole thing. But I don't like to entertain the thought of what if I actually did become her and then think that I would resent myself for it, because I know I've been, saying a lot of very harsh truths about who she is and how it frightens me that it feels like we're on a similar track. But I also, I want to give myself the kindness of thinking that no matter where I end up, I want to think that I will, give myself some kind of leeway or, sympathetic shoulder, even if it's only myself, that I am not maybe that bad.